Catherine. We'll welcome you to this Therapist Thursday chat. I know you're from San Antonio and I know a little bit about what you do, but I thought you might want to explain that to others and
Okay,
introduce yourself a little bit.
sure. So my name is Cathron Sterling. I'm an occupational therapist. I've been practicing now for 27 years. Um, I've done all there is to do, I think. I mean, started in acute care and inpatient rehab with pediatrics, and then I did a lot of adult acute care. I've done both adult and pediatric home health and outpatient for many, many years. And then I kind of transitioned out of a clinical role into a liaison role for a big healthcare system here in San Antonio where I was evaluating patients on acute care to see if they met criteria for rehab. And I did that for 7 years. But during that time, I, on the side, had started my own company where I was focusing on home safety and accessibility and DME prescription in wheelchairs. So that was in 2020 that I got that off the ground. And then in 2023, I started doing it full time pretty much. And here
Oh,
we are
wow.
today.
Yeah. So there were some things I just learned that I didn't know about you,
Oh,
even though I've known you
oh,
for a while in terms of the rehab
yeah.
liaison and the peds. So, with all of this, what really inspired you to start into the home mods area?
Well, I think back to many, many years ago when I was doing pediatric home health. This was probably 2006, 7, 8 timeframe where I would go into these homes and there's, a lot of, poverty or lack of access and it just got me to thinking about more of a public mindset, access to services, and that's just really when a light bulb clicked for me about that side of our role in the healthcare system, about maybe kind of in a way doing care coordination and that sort of thing. And if I would see they were in an unsafe environment or they didn't have the right DME or stuff like that. Um, so that was way back then. I put that thinking cap on, and then I went to graduate school and I got my master's degree in public administration and nonprofit management. And then what really tipped me over the edge about home modifications was my mom. So my mom, starting in, I want to say in 2005, she had her first stroke and had repeated strokes. And then my dad was her primary caregiver, and then he passed away unexpectedly in 2018. And so I was having to do a lot of traveling from San Antonio up to Lubbock to help my sister and my niece, who became her primary caregivers. And then I was just seeing the struggle with trying to get her into the shower and into the front door,
Hmm.
and because she became wheelchair dependent. And then I took her on at my house for a little bit, and I had to, before I brought her here, my house is nowhere near wheelchair accessible. So I called a friend of mine. He's a home inspector by trade, and he and I literally made a little apartment for her in my garage. And then she came to stay with me for a while. And anyway, she ultimately passed away in 2022. But that's what really got me into it. And then uh, started doing it more through the company I started in 2020. Just always just kind of thinking of my mom when I go and do the stuff that I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's such a personal story, and you can understand the passion you have for it then
Yeah,
coming from that.
yeah.
When you decided to branch out on your own, what motivated you to start the business?
I think, and I hope this doesn't sound crazy or whatever, but I think, and I can go on and on about, I've just kind of had one loss after another. I mean, first was my dad, that was unexpected, and uh, then over the course of the following years, seeing my mom decline in that state after my dad died, because she was really I think a lot of women, sometimes that happens to women when their
Mhm.
husbands die. She just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
So seeing her decline was a loss. Then I lost all three of my dogs. And I just will never forget it. It was when my last dog died. I'm like, okay, I just don't want to be, I wasn't enjoying my role as that rehab liaison. And I just said, why am I wasting all this time? I took my grief and turned it and channeled it elsewhere.
Into something
I'm
that
just
you
gonna go
had a
for it.
passion for.
I'm just gonna go for it. That's what happens.
That's that's great. So what were some of like the hesitations or misconceptions that you had when you went to start out in home mods as a business or even just doing the evaluations, and then what changed?
Well, so I think when I was telling everyone, all of my colleagues at the hospital system that I was leaving, there was some even like OTs and PTs that I worked with in that liaison role, or even the actual treating therapist there, they didn't even know when I would tell them what I was doing, because I'm setting it up as a mobile outpatient practice to not only, do home modifications, but to actually do mobile outpatient, do some skilled intervention. And I think a lot of people, that was a foreign term. No
Mm-hmm.
one had really thought about what mobile outpatient was, and there was a lot of misconception about, oh, well, insurance doesn't pay for that. And I would say, well, of course, they don't fund the actual modification, but they will pay for skilled services in the home. And so having to explain all
Mm-hmm.
of that. I'm sorry, I don't remember the follow-up question to the
Oh,
misconception
just
there, but
what changed, that there were hesitations, but then what changed was getting learning about what you could do, right?
well, so what changed was, yes, learning what I could do, and then of course, meeting you along the way on the coaching platform. And I mean, it's been life changing, everything that I've learned on this platform to uh, grow my business.
Well, that's good. I'm
And
glad.
yeah, yeah,
So, so
facing
look,
all the challenges everybody faces, it's still a resource for me to come to every week.
yes, that Home Safety Pros, our grad
Yeah.
group on Wednesdays, is just very rewarding and supportive. And even for those that can't make it, I get messages from them having watched the videos and being able to do the replay. Um, Looking back, though, what is one of the most rewarding experiences you have had since focusing on home mods?
I would say there's, I have a primary funder that this group, they're a local nonprofit, Connectability. They're my biggest client. And some of the folks I see through Connectability are more long-term. And so I'll come in and I'll do a home modification assessment, for example, to recommend for example, a bathroom conversion for a roll-in shower. And so, you know, this one particular client I'm thinking of, I got consulted to go back out there to prescribe her a standing frame. And so, but I guess it was just that took me by surprise, because it was not even, they just kind of mentioned it in passing about how much of a blessing it was to be able to get my client into the bathroom so she could take a real shower. And it wasn't even something I asked them. Somehow it just got worked into the natural flow of the conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, because I'd almost forgotten that I had helped them with their bathroom. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So it was just, just it struck me in the moment.
Yeah, so it's that hearing from clients or their families or
Yes.
caregivers about how much of a difference you made.
Yeah, because they
How
hadn't been able to give her a real shower. I mean, she had
Yeah.
a young female had a stroke during childbirth, and
Oh,
she's
yes.
devastated neurologically. And so for them to just be able to give her a real shower, I mean, that was life changing for everyone.
Yeah, can you
Kind of the
imagine
things
like
we
being
take
able to
for
wash
granted.
your hair
Yes,
that way, right?
yes,
As when we appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah, those experiences are really important. You mentioned about the group, but the chat certification program, the course, did that really help with your assessments and how you approach clients and what you do with that?
Yes, because I think everybody, well, I don't know if everybody knows, but there are a lot of different certifications out there. What helped me the most with the chat is it because it is clinician driven. It's from the lens of an OT, and it made me feel more confident in my assessment capabilities and my recommendations, and just of course learning things I've never even thought about before. And of course, what I really appreciate too is just the evidence-based research that we learn about in the
Hmm.
program.
So, what advice would you give occupational therapists about moving out into the Homans area if they're feeling unsure or where to start? How would how would you say to get started?
Well, I would say, because when I was doing it, it was just constantly talking to my colleagues and telling them what it was that I was doing with starting my business. And because I was constantly networking with my colleagues, for example, I got introduced to a guy named Scott who is actually runs a just a regular outpatient physical therapy practice. And even still, so I'm doing wheelchair assessments. They contract my company to do wheelchair assessments, but again, I'll explain. I'm just constantly talking about home safety because, of course, wheelchair assessments directly tie into
Home
home
accessibility.
stability. So I think he had been hearing me and talking. He would hear me explain things to the ATP or the patient, and so I think he approached me about well Medicare and their big push for fall prevention. And he's really interested in getting a formalized partnership going with me as an OT to educate his physical therapists about the importance of fall prevention in the home environment. And so that's kind of something that's in the works, but that's the advice I give OTs is just if they want to go down this road, just get out there and talk to your colleagues, explain what you're doing.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got, contact with this company and him. You've got a nonprofit that you've
Hmm.
found and partnered with. So it's really kind of getting out in your community. I think the other thing is you were saying is having more confidence to be able
Yeah.
to understand what it is you have to offer,
Yeah.
right? And being able to sell that because it is kind of selling, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's how can we, and I liked how you were talking about kind of identifying the need they had, and then how can you help with problem solving that?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely doing this home modification. It that's one of the things too is learning how to prioritize needs because you can't go in and tackle everything all at once. And that's kind of because my mind can get overwhelmed with it sometimes, but I'm thinking, okay, what problem can we try to solve first? And what's
Hmm.
the most meaning? And again, this goes to True Blue OT. What is the most meaningful to the patient? And
Hmm.
trying to tackle that as best we can.
Absolutely. And I know with some of the cases we've discussed, you've really been focused on what are the clients' wants, needs, and their priorities, and even the shower that you were talking about. I mean, of course, there's urgent safety things we need to
Yeah.
consider, but I think balancing that clinical judgment with the client's personal goals. So, what is the process where you work through that? I mean, you spend more time with interviewing them, discussing their I mean, it's really an OT profile, right? Occupational profile,
So
but
that's exactly what I do. So I have focused the way I like to I've kind of put together standard operating procedures, I guess, if you will, to where I get a referral. I wanted to start with a phone interview and I'll tell them, I'll call them up. I'll get a referral and I'll call the patient up and I'll say, I got your referral. Can I put you down on my calendar for a phone interview? The phone interview takes about 25 minutes. And they'll always ask, well, what is it for? And I said, well, first, it's just to fill out my paperwork, my intake paperwork, get that out of the way. But it helps me learn more about you before coming to see you. So that's what I'll do. I'll talk to them. on the phone and get kind of a picture about what I'm going to be walking into. So then I get to the home and I open up my Hello Note, my EMR, and I put my OT hat on just for the clinical part. So I'm literally assessing range of motion, strength, balance, cognition. I'm assessing for, edema or, skin issues. I just spend about at least 30 to 45 minutes just on an OT eval because then
Hmm.
it helps me. Then I'll say, okay, now let's talk about what's your biggest concern with living in this house right now. And then
Hmm.
then that's how I transition. But because I've done an OT eval, I can in my mind picture, okay, what is it? How is it? For example, they're trying to get up these stairs, or how are they,
Hmm.
whatever
Yeah.
it is I pick. I find that doing that, just that straight OT eval, um, is helpful.
Yeah, and it gives you a basis, right? But
Yeah.
also it helps with establishing rapport with the client
Yes,
because,
exactly.
one of the things, and I see this with you, but one of the things thinking about is we may have some expertise skills, but in terms of our clients' lives and their homes, they're kind of the expert in that. And so,
Mhm,
kind of that shared decision making, I hear a lot of
mhm,
that with what you're talking about.
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Um, it's hard when you have some safety concerns, though. So we've talked about this with other clients, right? Where safety is a bigger issue, and how can you can't keep recommending that. Yeah.
Well, there was one, and I mean, I think this kind of directly ties in. So I had a recent home evaluation I got called in to do, and a younger, well, he's in his early 60s, but he had
That's very young, by the way.
yeah, it's very young, um, a lower extremity above knee amputation, and going up, and there's no bedroom or shower downstairs, just a half bath, no bedroom, no shower. So I was said, well, how are you getting up the stairs? And he goes, well, I'm scooting on my bottom. And I said, oh, okay. And so I had to kind of, and he wanted to show me because I think he was proud of how he had been doing it.
Mhm.
And I was nervous, but he does it all day, every day. And he goes, and he said, it's important for me to show you what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So I just did a lot of deep breathing and just, I was like, okay, let's just do it. Because I had to put some trust. I mean, old me would have said, oh, we're not doing this. This is too dangerous. But I'm like, then I had to think, well, he's doing it and he wants to show me. So I just kind of had to put some trust in him. But he showed me how he got up to the top step and how he comes up on his intact leg, and then he hopped up that last step and like landed on a rollator walker. And I'm like, oh, okay, here. Okay. I said, so let's figure out what we can do, or right now to help you with your safety. I said, let's try to get another wheelchair for you that you leave upstairs and you can
Uh-huh.
manage that last step. And it's a little bit safer to land on a wheelchair than it is a rollator. And he goes, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And anyway, so it's about, again,
Yeah.
shared decision making. And anyway, that was just a recent thing that happened to me. And now I felt, oh gosh, I was nervous. Even at
That's
this
an
age and stage, I was nervous.
That's an important point because often we make assumptions about how clients are going to do stuff or are doing stuff.
Right.
And we make recommendations based on those assumptions versus actually observing them and figuring out what they've done and then working with them together, and they surprise us
Like he
because
surprised me.
yeah, because not everybody does everything the same way either, right?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
mean, even us so-called normal people,
Right.
which we're not, but even,
Right.
any of that, we do things differently.
Right.
And so thinking about that piece, um, was there a myth that you had about going into outpatient therapy in the home or home modifications that you think or you that other people have that you debunked? Well, you. doing this or that you think is not
I mean, I
accurate?
guess one of the biggest myths is insurance doesn't, and that's what I would hear repeatedly. Well, how can you do that? Insurance doesn't pay for it. Well, I mean, I guess I see what they're saying, but insurance does pay. Medicare will pay for a clinician to go into a home and under mobile place of service, you know,
Under
um,
home is the place of
under
service, yeah.
home. And then it's just, and there are all kinds of ways. There are, to me, it's rewarding to um find, that's why I went to graduate school for, public administration and nonprofit, because helping people, there are resources out there available to people. You just have to be creative and take the time to help people. And I think part of that, people, when they think of delivering services in the home, I think, if this is maybe a myth, I don't know, but they're thinking of traditional home health, which is
Mhm.
so 180 degrees different.
Mhm.
And I can see why a home health therapist would think, well, they simply don't have time to problem solve and provide resource identification. And, I
Yeah,
think,
because you've been that side of it, so you can
yes,
tell. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things of having your own business in home modifications and also, doing outpatient therapy is being able to take that time in those plans of care and really work with the client to get those outcomes.
yeah.
Um, for sure. As we kind of look at that, do you think that you were fully prepared, or did you think that certification like the chat has really provided a different level of education with the HOMODs? What is your thoughts on should therapists specialize? Should they have specialized skills? Should they do something like the chat?
Oh, I think it's a no question, you have to have specialized skill, because I think a lot of people are trying to encroach on OT's territory. And I think we have to advocate for our profession and and put out there what our skill set is. And I think the chat is one of those tools to keep us separated from, I get, again, I'll say it again, I think people are trying to encroach on our territory and try to act like they're OTs, but they're obviously not. And I think this is a way to advocate for our profession, keep our profession sustainable. Um, it's a place for, I mean, I know I've appreciated coming to our home safety pros group, because I feel, maybe with the COVID pandemic or something, I think we lost that collaboration. And I feel like this brings that back. And it's so important. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, and I think too, there's kind of a generalist skill when you talk about some of those things, and then the need for specialist skill, just like in driving, but just being aware of some of the products and the options and
Mhm.
things available as we bring those into our courses and the options. Um, what keeps you motivated to keep learning and doing stuff in this area?
Um, I guess what keeps me motivated is I know it's highly meaningful to the patient, to the client.
Hmm.
That's the reason why I'm there in the first place. They've reached out for resources because they need help. And so it's that's what keeps me motivated, because I like to be a problem solver. I mean, I don't know if I'm not saying I solve everybody's problems 100%, but I think I'm kind of coming in and helping solve some problems. Um, so that's what definitely keeps me motivated to keep doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of sad. I'm seeing a lot of therapists experiencing burnout
Yes.
and looking at leaving the profession. And I'm like, oh, if only you could experience it the way we are, right?
Correct. Because, I like to say, I don't think, I mean, I just can't imagine now, after doing this full time for the last 2 years. I don't think I could go back to a regular job in
Yeah.
OT. I just don't, I just, this has given me a way to remain in the profession. And I think I can do this into retirement, even past retirement is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I think it's really truly where OT shines, right?
Yeah.
It's really truly where you make the most difference and you see that value.
hmm
Now, are you just seeing adults? It sounds to me like you were seeing some younger clients as well.
I see some, especially at connectability. Well, in my wheelchair assessment clinics, I see kids and adults.
Okay.
I have a ATP that I've known. He was the very first ATP I ever met when I was at the Children's Hospital right out of OT school. And so I reconnected with him through this again, this see again another motivating. I started my company, so I was reaching out because I wanted to add wheelchair assessments to my company. So I called up David and we reconnected, and I haven't seen him in a very long time. So he only does pediatrics, and so I'm doing pediatrics and adults, all ages in
hmm
wheelchair clinic and all ages in the home modifications.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that shocked me getting into it too, because I just thought I'm going to just seeing older adults who are retiring, but my youngest client was two.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about the range and variety of options.
hmm
One of the things you talked about these different companies that your business is contracting with, you reached out to people that you knew, but with some of the nonprofits, such as Connectability, how did you make those connections?
So I worked with an OT at the Children's Hospital. Good friend of mine, and he left the Children's Hospital and he wanted to do something different. And the physical medicine and rehab doctor that we both worked for at that rehab program introduced him to a patient. It was his son. This other physician's son was in a near drowning accident and was on our rehab unit, and the dad was a neurologist. And that man, the neurologist, started this database because of what had happened to his son. He was like, even as a physician, he was couldn't believe the challenges he was facing
Hmm.
getting his son with this severe traumatic injury, how to navigate the
The
post
systems
hospital.
and yeah.
So he started this thing. It was a navigation system that was supposed to help people. Um, it's like a one-stop place to help people fill their prescriptions or make their follow-up visits or get any other DME and all this stuff. So my OT friend went to work for this doctor in his company. It was a startup. And then that platform that he created it started being utilized by Connectability. And so
Ah,
then my OT friend then went to work for Connectability
okay.
as a care coordinator. And so that's how I got introduced to these folks.
Yeah. So it's really being in your community, understanding your community, maintaining those connections. Because
Mm.
what I'm hearing is it's all these connections that you've had in places that you've worked or things that you've
Yeah,
done that have helped you build a network within your community.
correct.
Yeah.
Very,
It,
yes.
yeah. And that's really a key piece. And that's the other thing with us working in patients' homes and doing the problem solving or home mods connecting stuff is really being able to understand our community resources and be part of that, right? And
Mhm.
pulling stuff together.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because, for me here it was, an equipment loan thing. And it was,
Yeah.
all of those things that we're part of because it's resources our clients need.
Yes.
Yeah. Or if they're not here, setting them up ourselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, any other wisdom pearls you would like to drop for therapists who are interested in home modifications or in getting their business set up a private practice themselves?
I guess just it's not easy, and it takes
True.
courage. So I say just, but again, I'll say it. It's in our current, the way our medical system is set up now. I understand the burnout. So this is just, it affords people a way to stay in the profession and deliver OT the way they want to deliver it.
Hmm. And you still have to be careful about monitoring the overwhelming parts of managing a business or practice and those things
Correct.
with it for sure. But it
But
does
you're doing it
allow,
for yourself, you know?
yeah. Yes, as I was saying to someone today, though, you have to be careful. It's like my boss did not give me the day off.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Right. But then you're answering to yourself, and some of that brings out the best and the worst of your own self too.
Oh,
But
well, I'm learning.
yeah,
I'm learning.
yes, we
Mhm.
all are. But again, it sounds like you wouldn't have it any other way at this stage in terms of, and this has been a great way to solidify your OT career.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I am glad that our chat program and our Home Safety Pros program has been providing you support because as you share your cases and we problem solve and stuff together, it's
Yes.
amazing the things that you've been doing in your
Oh, thank you.
community.
Oh, thanks, Sue.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear that. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.